because they're two separate video feeds and a third audio feed, we do have to clap.
Oh my gosh.
Still, even
sure.
in person. Okay.
Can I do it? I've been working on it
Count
for
down?
30 some episodes.
30? Okay.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh.
That's the best it's ever been.
So amazing.
That's crazy. Well, how are you? Welcome.
Hey, well, thank
New
you.
York.
We are in the Queens studio.
Yes.
And
Officially, it really feels like a studio.
it does. Oh, I love
We're
it.
in my living room.
Yeah. And thank you to you and Claire for hosting me.
Yep.
It's so lovely. You've done amazing things with the place. I mean, it feels like a home.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for over a year now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like a year and a half.
Oh, yeah.
And it started out as just like a fun way to hang out. And it's still a fun way to hang out.
And it turned into drudgery.
And it turned into, no, it's still
Something
fun.
happened halfway through where it became a chore.
No, it's just delightful.
Oh, no, it's a highlight. I look forward to it every time.
Well, welcome to a very special in-person on video episode of Fascinators. Welcome to Fascinators. It's a bi-weekly podcast dedicated to the weird and wonderful people, concepts, and stories that send us down the rabbit hole. Each week, myself, Evan Atkinson, and my dad,
Ken Atkinson,
tell one another about something that is currently fascinating us.
Yes. I love it when we're together because you give me the visual cue that I'm supposed to say my name.
Yeah. We actually, the first time we ever did this, because I wrote the intro.
Yeah.
It was just like a quick little, here's what's going on with the podcast. But I
Sure.
wrote the intro and then didn't tell you that you had a part in the intro and just kind of like waited for you to respond with your own name.
Did I get it right?
You did. You got it right.
Okay.
You got close. You were like Dwayne Stevens. Oh,
Right.
damn it.
Line.
What is it? It's funny that we're talking about names and having the right name.
Yeah.
This week, I'm fascinated by something to do with names.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the work of Carolyn Keene? Carolyn Keene is an author.
No. You know who I'm thinking of is it? Oh, Catherine Keener. Actress. Yeah. Great actress. So no, I do not know.
Carolyn
Miss
Keene,
Keene.
you're probably more familiar with her work. She's the author of the Nancy Drew series.
Oh, yeah.
Credited with 78 books.
Okay.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
From 1930 to 1985.
Okay.
So 55 years of writing.
Wow.
Do you know any of her other work?
No.
Well, she isn't real. So that's probably why you're not familiar. Carolyn Keene, not a real person.
Did they have AI
In the 30s?
Yeah.
No. The dream of the future. What if you could get books for women and men don't even have to write them? So Carolyn Keene is not a real person. It's a pen name,
Okay.
but not of one person. Like most pen names are like, people. I think of like S.E. Hinton, who wrote The Outsiders.
Okay.
Kind of disguised her name because she was a woman writing a book about men in like the 50s.
Right.
And so she was like, it was like Sarah Evanston Hinton or whatever, but she's like S.E. sounds like
Right.
could be a dude.
Right.
So it's actually the pen name of the Stratemeyer Syndicate, which sounds very
Ominous. Yes.
It's a publishing company that was founded by Edward Stratemeyer,
Okay.
who hired nearly 24 writers to produce the Nancy Drew manuscripts.
Oh my gosh.
So the main writers, there was two main writers. It was Mildred Wirt Benson, which I guess like Carolyn Keene sounds fun. Mildred Wirt is not as sexy of a name. And her daughter, Harriet Adams, wrote 49 of the 78 books. So there is kind of some legit authorship
Sure.
over this, but the authors were paid $125 per book.
What?
Which is in 1930 I didn't get rates on like if that improved until the 80s because $125 in the 80s is nothing.
Right.
In 1930, it was still only $2,300, which is I would not write a book for $2,300.
Oh my gosh.
They're shorter. They're like 20, but they're 20 chapter books.
Yeah.
which is crazy. And they were required in their contract, if you were writing for the Stratemeyer Syndicate, to give up all rights to your work
of
to
course.
maintain confidentiality. So they didn't get any royalties. There wasn't anything, past this.
Yeah.
It was just $125. Thanks. You wrote The Clue of the Missing Dog or whatever. The case of the disappeared lady.
I would like to be the title writer.
Yeah.
Those were so clever.
That was actually Harriet Adams, Mildred Wirt's daughter, was like the title person when she was a kid.
Oh, really?
Mildred
Yeah.
Wirt was like, hey, I wrote this mystery. What would be a fun thing to call it? What would get you to buy it?
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, no,
She got paid 45 cents for coming up with the title.
which is actually $40,000 in today's money.
It was in Bitcoin back then.
So crazy.
Yeah.
That's
So interesting. And I guess the authors were just so excited to get their work out there.
Yeah.
And they give up all the rights, but could they brag about that, I wonder, on their
No.
resume and say, hey, I did episode 8 of Nancy Drew or book 12.
No.
You couldn't. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were sworn to secrecy. They basically signed an NDA of like, you divorce all rights to talk about this once you've written
It's got to be Carole King.
Yeah. To build up the mystique. Today,
Yeah.
I'm talking about pseudonyms.
Ooh.
Fake names. Pseudonym, Greek word, literally means false name.
Okay.
Some pseudonyms can be cultural or religious.
Yeah.
An example is like cadre names, like Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin are all pseudonyms. Lenin's real name was Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, and Trotsky's real name was Lev Davidovich Bronstein. So Trotsky was Jewish and didn't want to be known as Jewish, so he adopted Trotsky as a Russian pseudonym.
Okay.
I was about to say Catherine Keener, like Carolyn Keene. A lot of pseudonyms are pen names. Are you familiar with the pen name Publius?
No.
Publius is the credited author of the Federalist Papers, but was actually James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay. Because they all used one pen name, we're not sure who wrote which portions of the Federalist Papers.
Yeah. So is that also for, like you mentioned about the Russian Revolution, was that for safety? So like for treason? Mm-hmm. Like if they got caught, they didn't want to use their real names. Okay.
A lot of it. The Bronte sisters
Yes.
used male pen names
Yes.
for Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. Are you familiar with the work of Samuel Clemens?
Yes.
Mark Twain was his pen name. Theodore Geisel wrote as Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
Eric Arthur Blair wrote as, any guesses?
No.
George Orwell.
Oh.
And the famed British mathematician Charles Lutwidge Dodgson might be better known as Lewis Carroll.
Oh. Hey.
He published mathematical treatises under his real name and then was like, I'm writing fantasy books.
Oh,
I don't
really?
want the math people thinking that I'm a fantasy author trying to do math. I don't want fantasy readers to be like,
Yeah.
oh, this is just a boring mathematician.
Right.
So
So instead of like through the looking glass, it'd be like through the prism.
Yeah.
The spectrum of light.
The refraction waves of... Exactly. There's also medical pseudonyms. Can you think of any medical pseudonym?
Hippocrates?
Or like if I am an unknown person and I'm checked into a hospital in the U.S.
Oh, like Jane Doe, John Doe. Okay.
John Doe and Jane Doe.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a couple versions of these and you have to tell me the country that they are from.
Right.
Jean and Jean Dupont.
That's France.
Yes. Max and Erica Musterman.
Germany?
Yeah. Mario and Maria Rossi.
Italy.
Yeah. And Ivan Ivanov and Ivanova.
It's Russia.
It feels like funny, stereotypical, but it's just like these are the most common names
So makes sense.
they can come up with.
Yes.
Musterman, the German last name of the pseudonym, literally translates to sample person.
Oh.
So it's like Max sample person and Erica sample person.
Interesting.
Musterman. Obviously, music, I think, comes to mind most.
Yeah.
When we think of pseudonyms, like stage names.
Is there going to be a Diddy involved?
There's no, I redacted him
Puffy?
from this conversation. But there's a lot. Like most rappers have stage names.
Sure.
Prince, his name was a symbol at one point
Yes.
due to pending legislation. Prince is actually his first name.
Yes.
Which a lot of people think is a stage name, but his name is Prince Nelson Rogers?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
He also wrote songs under pseudonyms for other artists going by the name Alexander Nevermind, Christopher Tracy, and Jamie Starr. And he wrote songs for like the Bangles
Yes.
and other artists under those names. Are you familiar with the artist Henry John Duisendorf Jr.?
No.
You might know him as John Denver.
Oh.
Sounds a lot better than John Duisendorf Jr. How about Chris Gaines? Chris Gaines
Yes.
is my favorite.
Is that 50 Cent?
No.
Oh,
that's Chris. You're thinking Ludacris Chris Bridges. Or no.
No,
50
50
Cent's
Cent.
Curtis James Jackson. The third
Oh, that is.
is
Yeah,
50
yeah.
Cent.
Chris Gaines is so familiar.
Garth Brooks
Oh, I know.
went under the pseudonym Chris Gaines to have a rock career. Do you know anything about this? This was in 1999.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Garth Brooks created a fictionalized version of himself for a movie called The Lamb, which never came out.
No, I don't.
But in the lead up to this movie that never happened, he wrote a full album as Chris Gaines, as like pop rock.
Yeah.
And Garth Brooks hosted SNL, and the musical guest was Chris Gaines. So and Chris Gaines, let me show you a picture of Chris Gaines. It's very Spencer's Gifts, Hot Topic. This is Chris Gaines.
Oh, yes. Yes. Totally.
Normally,
That was like the Chris Angel
here's the side-by-side.
phase.
of
Yeah.
Garth Brooks.
That's
Chris
like
Gaines.
Chris Angel was popular. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
Chris Gaines look. Was a little Chris Angelist.
So his
And Dave Navarro.
yeah, big time. Anybody who might be a guest on Ink Masters, the tattoo reality show, is 1999 encapsulated.
Right.
One of Chris Gaines's songs, "Lost in You," is Garth Brooks's first and only Billboard Hot 100 Top 40 single.
Really?
So his alter ego, it did better. And I looked it up expecting to like laugh. It's pretty good.
Is that right?
And I was like, why is this so familiar? And it's because Childish Gambino covered it.
You are kidding.
Because the movie didn't come out and Garth Brooks filmed a mockumentary about Chris Gaines's greatest hits.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, all of Garth Brooks's fans were like, what?
Yeah.
Who is this? I think he would have done better if he just was like, I'm Garth Brooks and I'm doing a pop song now.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
It'd be a lot more fun.
I'm a crossover artist. That's wild.
How about Alan Smithy,
No.
the director? He's the director of Twilight Zone the movie, Dune, Catch Fire, The Guardian, Scent of a Woman, Rudy, Heat, Meet Joe Black, The Birds 2, Land's End, and Maniac Cop 3, Badge of Silence, as well as the pilot of MacGyver.
Really?
Alan Smithy is, of course, not one person. Alan Smithy is an official pseudonym for directors who want to officially disown a film that they've worked on.
Wow. And do you have to declare that ahead of time?
Yeah, so you have to, it was created by the Directors Guild of America. And basically, if a director is dissatisfied with the final product of a film, they have to prove to a guild panel that they lost significant creative control over the project, and then they're able to credit themselves as Alan Smithy when the film is released.
I've never heard of such a thing.
No, it's great. So there's all those movies that I mentioned. A lot of them are used more for TV and in-flight edited versions. So like Dune is directed by David Lynch.
Yeah.
But for the TV edited version, he was like, I don't want any part of this.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Do you know what David Lynch sounds like?
No.
That's a spot on David Lynch.
Is that right?
I don't want any part of this production.
So if I watched it at home and then saw it on the plane, it should have a different director?
Yeah, it would list Alan Smithy as the director if you watch the TV edited version of the thing. Same with Heat, the TV edited version of Heat, which is a Michael Mann movie. The TV version is Alan Smithy.
Yeah, okay.
Which I watched the TV edited version at one point, and I'm a big Michael Mann head, and I was like, this isn't right. This is wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Something's up with this. Scent of a Woman, similar story.
Okay.
TV edited version.
Yeah.
So the director who becomes Alan Smithy, is required by guild rules not to discuss the circumstances leading up to the movie or even acknowledge being the director. So basically, you have to like fully be ready to wash your hands of whatever movie you've worked on.
Yeah.
It was first used in the 1969 film Death of a Gunfighter. Director Robert Totten was fired by the lead actor, Richard Widmark, and then Widmark replaced him with this guy named Don Siegel. So there was creative differences between the lead actor.
Yeah.
He gets rid of the director, replaces him.
He's had some clout, that actor.
Yeah.
Apparently.
And I've never heard of Richard Widmark.
Yeah, I've heard the name, but I
have?
couldn't pick him out of the lineup.
It rhymes too much with Skidmark. That's the only reason that I'm
Poor guy through high school.
focused on it.
Yeah.
But the finished project comes out, and the original director, Robert Totten, sees it, and he's like, hey, like over half of this movie is what I shot, and I was only on set for like 8 days. And the other director was there for like 30. So he's like, this new guy, Siegel, needs the directing credit because he was there for more of the time.
Yeah.
And Siegel is like, I don't want anything to do with this. Like, I just kind of came in and tried to deal with it.
Yeah.
So he refuses to take credit for it. So Totten goes to the DGA and is like, you gotta let me use a pseudonym. I don't want to touch this movie. Like, no one wants to take credit for it. And so they came up with, at first it was going to be Al Smith. And then they were like, there's probably an actual director named Al Smith.
Oh, sure.
And then it was Alan Smith and then Alan Smythe. And then they're like Alan Smithy with 2 E's at the end. There's probably not a real one.
Yeah.
And the DGA, similar to like SAG and the WGA, if there's already somebody with your name, you can't use it. That's why like Emma Stone, her real name is Emily.
Right.
But she, because of SAG rules, there was already an Emily Stone as an actress in SAG, so she had to change her name to Emma.
Gotcha.
And now she's kind of trying to like reverse it. I've seen in like interviews. She's like, you can call me Emily. That's my name. Like people who know me call me Emily.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So they came up with Alan Smithy. Death of a Gunfighter comes out in 1969.
Yeah.
And people love it.
Oh, no.
The critics are obsessed. Critics praised the film and its new director. The New York Times commented that the film was sharply directed by Alan Smithy, who has an adroit facility for scanning faces and extracting sharp background detail. Roger Ebert commented, said, Director Alan Smithy, a name I'm not familiar with, allows his story to unfold naturally. So everyone's like,
that's incredible.
It's just the wrong movie to bail on,
Yeah.
I guess.
Right. It's an awesome origin, though, of that. Oh, my gosh. That's so cool.
It hasn't been formally used. They stopped using it formally in 2000. They just were like, you got to own it. If you make a bad movie, it happened. In 1997, people started to know about Alan Smithy in the general public, the idea of it. Yeah. And so the film, an Alan Smithy film, Burn Hollywood Burn, was released. It was about... The plot was a man named Alan Smithy, played by Eric Idle from Monty Python, tries to disavow a film that he directed, but he's unable to because his name is the same as the pseudonym. In real life, the director of that film, Arthur Hiller, claimed to the DGA that the producer of the film interfered with his creative control, so he got his name changed to Alan Smithy.
Yeah.
In real life for the movie.
Yeah.
So an Alan Smithy film, Burn Hollywood Burn, is in fact directed by
oh my gosh,
Alan Smithy.
That is fascinating.
It's an Ouroboros. It came all the way around. But that's what fascinates me this week is pseudonyms.
I love it. That's so good. That's so interesting.
Have you ever... I remember when we would get reservations sometimes, you would call in under Bossimo. That's your pseudonym. Right. Have you ever... I've not used a pseudonym before.
No.
I don't think. I guess my Xbox gamer tag is a pseudonym. Technically.
Mine is my social security number.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Make sure it's immediately traceable.
Yeah. No, I have never used, I've heard of people doing like reservations for Dr. Johnson or Senator Smith or, something like that just to see.
Yeah.
But no, I've never.
We're not famous enough
like that.
yet. We're not famous enough yet to have to use pseudonyms.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah, that's what fascinates me this week.
Maybe one day.
What has been on your mind?
So we might know this term from a Christopher Bullock idiom that he made famous. Well, he didn't make famous. He coined this idiom. Benjamin Franklin made it famous to most Americans.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Christopher Bullock.
No, yeah, I opened incorrectly.
Okay.
He coined it, but Franklin made it famous.
Okay.
Like 70 years later. So 1789. In this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes.
Yep.
You might have heard of that.
I have heard.
I have a two-parter.
Okay.
Our first two-parter, I think.
What? Like, you're not going to get all of it?
Correct.
This go around? Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So you can look forward to taxes next time.
You can well, it's inevitable.
Today we're talking death.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yes. So there are new theories on two famous people's cause of death.
Okay.
So some historic figures have passed, and their cause of death was listed as this. Two new theories have popped up,
Okay.
and they think it's something else. And I'm here for it.
Okay.
I've read these things, and I love it.
So it's not going to be a total bummer. Unless.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, it will not be a total bummer. I promise.
All right.
So,
Lay it on me.
323 BCE, Alexander the Great
Yeah.
formed the largest land empire by the time the world had ever seen by the time he was 25 years old. So in 323,
I'm 26. I'm not. My land empire is like a 15th of a block in Queens.
Right. Every marathon starts with one step.
That's true.
Yeah. So 323 BCE. So we know that he did not die from like a trauma
Okay.
or, it wasn't in battle or anything like that. And so even his contemporaries were, what is this? And then doctors today are wondering what it was. So there were some different theories. He died of natural causes, but again, he's 25 years old and he's, a strapping young lad.
Yeah. He's the great.
Yes, possibly malaria or typhoid fever, acute alcohol poisoning, or an assassin's poison were kind of the leading ones. So at this time, we did have Hippocrates, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So he's like the OG physician, But our knowledge of medicine at the time was not very good. It was sketchy at best. They're still
Bloodletting and leeches.
yeah,
and
still doing
humors.
some things. Yeah. So Alexander was challenged to drink a crater of wine, which a crater is like 6 quarts. And he was challenged to drink it in one sitting.
Oh, no.
So obviously he says challenge accepted.
Yeah. How many bottles is that?
6
Like 4
quarts
bottles? 5 bottles?
easily. So, that's a gallon and a half of wine. And I think wine back then was stronger
Yeah.
because they used to cut it with water.
Okay.
And this was just the
wine.
the good, expensive
Okay.
wine of the time. He finishes this crater of wine. He just has this searing back pain and collapses.
Ooh.
And he does not wake up. So 2 weeks go by and he's declared dead. And
What took 2 weeks?
yeah.
They're like, he's going to get back up.
Yeah. And so his body is embalmed and he's ultimately buried. So here's the new theory proposed by Dr. Catherine Hall of New Zealand.
Okay.
So according to all historical records, Alexander's body rested in Babylonia for those 2 weeks and it didn't decay or decompose or there was no sinking of any of the things. And so that was so strange.
Yeah.
That the legend became he's a god. He truly is a god. He's dead, but he's not decaying. His body will live on, and we can worship the body and all this stuff. So Dr. believes Alexander the Great had Guillain-Barré syndrome,
Okay.
which is an acute autoimmune condition that results in muscle paralysis.
Oh.
So, and if so, he would not move, and he would have such shallow breathing that the doctors couldn't tell he was breathing, and he was embalmed while alive.
What?
Embalmed and buried. So,
Ah.
so sweet dreams with that.
Yeah,
that's the new theory, that he had this autoimmune disease and you get muscle paralysis. And it's a thing, it's a true thing.
Yeah.
And so she's recording all these eyewitness at the time, but all these historical information and say, he suffered from this and suffered from that. And his troops came in to say goodbye to him. And they would go in and see that, there's no atrophy in any of the muscles after 2 weeks in Babylonia, it was hot. It wasn't as dry as it is now. It was a little more humid. So you would have things go, and they didn't have air conditioning back then, or ice being shipped down.
They're like, he's sweating. It's crazy.
No, yeah. So nothing was going on.
So did he develop the condition because of the wine drinking competition?
No, he just had it. He had some other fits or incidences of that type of thing, but nothing as severe. And so that's why people were trying to say, oh, it's alcohol poisoning because he drank all this wine, or he was poisoned by an assassin, or, that led to this. So the doctors at the time, like, it's been 2 weeks. We can't, see anything that he's alive. They didn't know how to do a lot of things, so they just embalmed him.
That's crazy.
So that's a new theory.
They're like, I can't believe he died and still has a pulse. Everything but his heart is dead.
Yeah. I don't know if they knew about pulses back then.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And if so, it would have been so shallow and faint. And that happens today. You can have such a shallow pulse that you can't feel it through the skin.
Whoa.
Kind of thing. So that's one theory.
Okay.
Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Died in 1973.
He was embalmed to death as well.
At his mistress's house in Hong Kong. And so Hong Kong at that time was fairly conservative.
Yeah.
So it was like a big scandal.
Was it still British control?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was a big movie star. So all the parties want to kind of move past it and expedite the scandal, prevent the scandal from blowing up too much. So the official cause of death was officially listed as cerebral edema, which is swelling on the brain.
Okay.
And so the doctor said it was due to an allergic reaction to a headache medication.
Whoa.
And then they just closed the books. So it was super shocking at the time because another person that was amazingly fit. And so different theories started to come up of why did he die? It couldn't be from an allergic reaction to
Excedrin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some said it was the triad had a hit job on him. Organized crime, I should say. Was it a drug overdose? Was it like from a fighting incident?
Yeah.
That, got kicked in the head and it was swelling kind of thing. So 2018, a biography about Lee's life proposes another possibility.
Okay.
And once again, I'm here for it. So several months prior to the death of Lee, he had his sweat glands removed from his armpits voluntarily because he didn't like the sweat stains in his movies.
Okay.
So he's like, I got a guy who can take out my sweat glands.
What?
And he did so.
That's got to be bad for you, I'd imagine.
It is indeed.
Like sweating is important. Why did he die? He did this crazy thing, this horrifying illegal medical procedure.
Yeah.
But we think he had a reaction to headache medication.
Yeah.
That's crazy. This dude sewed his mouth closed, but, what?
10 weeks before he passes, he's in the editing room for audio for one of his movies, or Enter the Dragon. And so he's doing some overdubbing for that. And the air conditioning unit in Hong Kong is making too much noise. So the sound engineers turn it off.
Okay.
And so it becomes like a sauna in this house.
Yeah.
Or in the recording studio. And keep in mind, he just had his sweat
can't
glands
sweat.
removed. So he passes out and starts convulsing on the floor. Bruce Lee does. And so he's rushed to the hospital. And they just barely save his life. Kind of thing. But he had nausea, vomiting, and cerebral edema, which is swelling of the brain.
Yeah.
So and apparently once you have like heat stroke, it takes like months to fully recover, and you're much more susceptible
Okay.
to it in the future.
Yeah.
So this was just again, 10 weeks before he passed away, he had this serious condition. 2.5 months after this, 10 weeks later,
Yeah.
he actually dies, and he has his side effects or his
Cause of death.
Cause of death.
Yeah.
But he had nausea, convulsions, headaches, and all these things are signs of, once again, heat stroke.
Oh.
So that's the near theory that's proposed, is that it was heat stroke because he had his glands removed, sweat glands removed. So as a little bonus, his open casket and scenes from his funeral were used in a movie.
What?
Yeah. So they're in the middle of filming another movie, I think Game of Death.
Okay. Sounds like a Hong Kong action movie.
Yeah, yeah. But they used actual footage from his funeral.
Oh.
So,
A legit snuff film.
A what?
A snuff film.
I don't know what that means.
It's like a movie where they actually kill people or like show actual
Oh,
death.
no.
It's like a term. Something.
Okay.
I've never seen one.
So here's another bonus. Bruce Lee symbolically rose from the ashes in 2005 in Bosnia, of all places. Ethnic, religious, and political hotbed, as we know, Bosnia.
We're all familiar.
Most of these statues were destroyed during decades of war in Bosnia. And so they're like, hey, we need a new statue. What should we do? No one could agree on anything because this would offend that person, that would offend this person. So the only thing they agreed on was a statue of Bruce Lee.
I love it.
In Bosnia. So they hire a Bosnian sculptor. He comes in, makes a statue. It's almost life size.
Okay.
And it's Bruce Lee in a fighting stance and stuff, and he's ripped, and it just looks really good.
Yeah.
Immediately the issues start. So this is 2005.
Yeah.
The issues start because no matter how they pose it, each enclave or neighborhood thinks that Bruce Lee's looking at them ready to fight in a fighting stance.
Okay.
So it's like a diss to have the Bruce Lee. So like they move it, it gets vandalized, they move it, they turn it this way, they turn it that way.
Put it on the edge of town. Like just face it towards Herzegovina.
Welcome to Bosnia, and it's, Bruce Lee coming at you.
Yeah.
So a sad note. So this goes on. So March of this year, some guy just steals it and tears it apart and uses it for parts.
No.
Yeah. Damn. So that's the end.
That's sad.
I know. So he rose. Well, he died. He rose again, and then his statue died.
Damn.
So I said that it's certain death and taxes, but you can avoid death for a little bit.
Yeah.
So here's a couple stories of people that avoided death for a little bit.
I like that twist.
Okay. On February 3rd, 1959, American rock and roll musicians Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper died in a plane crash.
Oh, man. I was laughing at the name The Big Bopper, and then you said they all died in a plane crash.
Yeah. So they died in a plane crash in Clear Lake, Iowa. 1959.
Yay!
But
Iowa.
the event became known as the day the music died, as immortalized in Don McLean's 1971 song American Pie.
Didn't Prince also die in Iowa?
No, he died in Minnesota.
Okay.
Gary Cooper died in Iowa, who's like a
There
40s
was,
actor.
So, Dad is from Iowa, and I went back to visit our family.
Yeah.
And one of our family members was like, I was like, what's going on in Iowa? Like, what are the things to see? And he's like, well, this is where Buddy Holly died. This is where Gary Cooper died. This is where Prince died. I guess he said that he died on an airplane and they touched down, and he was pronounced dead technically in Iowa.
Shoot, now that you say that, that might be right.
Which just feels like...
Oh, no, that's right.
When I went to Prague to visit one of my buddies who lives there, he gave me and my friend a tour of the city, and like everything he said was like, oh yeah, this person died here, and this... I was like, what about like, do you have like a cool castle, or like, is there something fun to see? And he was like, oh yeah, well I'll take you to a castle. And he's like, a lot of people kill themselves on this castle. And I was like,
Right.
well, all right.
Yeah.
It's grim. Iowa.
So
Dangerous.
here's one person that avoided that plane crash.
Okay.
Is Buddy Holly's bassist. There wasn't room for it. His bassist was Waylon Jennings.
I know that name.
Yeah, so he's one of the pantheon of that country and Western movement, like Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
So he's like Willie Nelson.
Is he one of the Highwaymen? Or no?
I don't.
It's like Johnny Cash and...
It might be. He avoids it. And then, because he would have been a young rascal at that point. And then he became one of the most influential
All right,
folks.
Waylon.
Yeah. So, 1846. Now, again, another one of postponing death for a little bit.
Yeah.
1846, a number of families from Springfield, Illinois are going to travel west and settle in the fertile valleys of California.
Beautiful.
And so the party...
They make it to Iowa. And it all goes south.
Right. Yeah. So the party is led by George and Jacob Dahmer.
Yes.
So
Okay.
famously, about half the people died, some of which were eaten.
Yum.
Someone who wanted to go with the Donners on their trip, however, since he had a toddler and his wife was pregnant,
Is this Abraham Lincoln?
Abraham and Mary Todd Lincoln
What?
were on that. There's like a list of people that they wanted to take
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah.
That were going to go on the
Yeah,
trip.
they
I
didn't
should-
plan to eat anybody.
Right. Right.
And then we'll stage an accident in Iowa. And
Abe was very sinewy, his
Yeah.
meat, so they didn't take him. No, so they could have been, and probably would have been. It was up to Abe. So like Mary Todd said, "Hey, we can't take the family
yeah.
like this," and so they didn't go. But that's another
nuts.
brush. And we've talked about like some of the World Trade Center planes. I think had some different.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, and so Seth MacFarlane.
Seth
I think.
MacFarlane. And
Yeah.
Mark
Right.
Two, you know,
They're
all
no,
right.
they're no Abraham Lincoln.
no Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
I'll say that.
What Mark Wahlberg has done less for race relations. He's turned it in the other direction.
Right.
That's nuts.
So those are the two actual different theories of death with Alexander and with Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And then Waylon Jennings, and we have another avoidance with Abraham Lincoln, kind of postponed. So that's the inevitable death part of my story. Next time, taxes. So look forward, y'all.
Look forward to taxes. We've never had a called shop before, so I'm excited.
Well, we're always keeping it fresh on the show.
That's true.
I'll say that.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I'm now so paranoid about sweating. I'm sweating a little bit right now. I'm like, good.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a good sign.
keep it up. I
It's
don't
your
want to get
body's
heat stroke.
Yeah. Natural regulation.
That's removing your sweat glands is wild.
For the craft. He did it for the craft.
But like,
He's committed, that
did
guy.
he not know it was going to be harder to do kung fu? Or I guess, what's his thing?
Yeah, it has its own name.
Oh, it starts with a W. Wing Chun. That's it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But like,
Was he an airbender?
yeah. No, he invented Wing Chun. It's crazy. I need
Yeah.
to learn more about Bruce Lee.
Yeah, he seems interesting. Well, and that's why you have people in Bosnia. That's the only thing we can agree on.
So we love Bruce Lee.
After, killing each other for actually hundreds and hundreds of years,
Yeah.
they've always been at it. The ethnic divisions and religious divisions, and we're like, we're going to do Bruce Lee.
I like it.
And that's why it was also such a huge scandal. And they tried to, and the only reason I mentioned that is because I don't know if like when they did the autopsy, because everybody was so anxious to close up the thing and move past it and get healing.
Yeah.
That, was the autopsy rushed and they just said, yeah, he just died from an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
Instead of going a little further and say, oh, wait, I heard he just passed out 10 weeks ago
Yeah.
from heat stroke.
Doing
Because
the same
a
thing.
few months before that, he had his sweat glands removed, and all the symptoms were the exact same.
Yeah.
In both cases.
They could have. I mean, they probably didn't think that they had to do a PSA against people getting their sweat glands removed because they're like, no one else is going to do this.
Right.
No one else is going to. Oh,
Right. Just stop taking ibuprofen
yeah.
was their thing.
Damn. That's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for next week.
All right. Well, very fun.
the first time I've been excited for taxes. Well, that
Could have been.
will do it for us this time on Fascinators. We had a great time. I hope you did as well, listening and maybe watching. We'll see what I end up doing with this video footage.
Okay.
But if there's something that fascinates you, you can always hit us up on our Instagram. It's FascinatorsPod on Instagram, or send us an email if you're old-fashioned, fascinatorspod@gmail.com. But that's it for us. Dad, what do we always say?
You know, sometimes words have two meanings.
I'll be puzzling on that. So next time, we'll see you all next time.